Boom! Boom! I didn't even feel that bad.
It's extra slack, dude.
We're talking about the brand new Kona Hanzo ESD. In case you weren't aware, ESD does in fact stand for extra slack, dude. And man, is this thing slack with a 63-degree head tube angle. Compare that to the 2020 steel frame Kona Hanzo that was still rocking a 68-degree head tube angle. It's 5 degrees slacker. I've been a long time Kona fan. I now own my third Kona Hanzo, and I'm not talking about this one. I have a 2020 custom steel frame Hanzo that I still have, and still it's a phenomenal bike. And yet in 2020, by today's standards, 68-degree head tube angle is pretty conservative, and so long awaited has been an update for the Hanzo, and Kona did not disappoint with this ESD. One of the things that I was personally super fired up about at the release of this bike was the fact that Kona chose to run a reduced offset fork that allows a frame to have a significantly slacker head tube angle, to glean all the capability of that slacker head tube angle, but maintain a very centered and balanced steering feel. You definitely want to check out my video on reduced offset fork geometry. I converted my 2020 steel frame Hanzo to have a reduced offset fork geometry by putting a Works Components angled headset and a reduced offset fork. And so seeing Kona actually adopt that geometry for this bike and the Process X bikes was a very welcome sight. In addition to having that super slack head tube angle, Kona adopted to run a super steep seat tube angle, 77.5 degrees, and you can just see it's ridiculously steep, and yet on the bike it really lends itself to a good seated climbing and pedaling position. Now this particular ESD is actually a size large. One thing I want to point out, on the release of this bike and on the Kona website, I'm assuming the pictures they show are actually of a size medium. I was really pumped to see the elimination of what people often refer to as the shark's fin. That is this part that connects the seat tube to the top tube, and yet this size large actually still has the shark's fin. Now, even on this one, it's not nearly as tall as what was on the previous generation frames, which allows you to get your seat post much lower. If you are a size large or above, you're still going to end up with a shark's fin. It's just not nearly as prominent as it was on the previous generation bike. But the size medium and below actually don't have it at all, and it just really makes a super clean look for this frame. Now, this is a size large. This is not my personal bike. My local bike shop, I'm going to leave a link to them below, were awesome enough to let me take this out for a day just to give it a spin, see how it feels. I was so stoked on this bike at release that I actually put it in an order for a size medium. I'm hoping to have that very soon. I come in at just under 5'10", and I really was assuming that this size large would just swallow me whole, and I was actually really wrong about that. I felt really good on this size large. I think I'm gonna feel even better on the size medium, but don't be afraid of those super long reach numbers. This size large is coming in at a 490 millimeter reach. The medium is 465. The medium on last year's Kona Hanzo and the previous year's Kona Hanzos were 450 and 475 for the reach number. It's so much slacker. The seat tube angle is so much steeper. I actually felt really decent on this 490 reach, but I assume that I'm going to feel even better on the 465. Now, I, like most people that see the numbers of this bike, like, man, this thing is going to be a blast straight lining downhill, but will it even corner? Am I gonna have to push this thing uphill? And after spending what has literally been one of the most fun days riding a bike of my entire life, I can attest that is completely not the case. The feel of this bike when you actually sling a leg over it, when you actually ride it, is just awesome. Like, you're not gonna have to worry about not being able to climb this bike. It's actually a really snappy cornering bike. It's actually, to me, a pretty good all-around bike. If you're wanting a bike that you can charge hard, if you're wanting a bike that you can roll into the jump line and have complete confidence, I really think you should give the ESD a strong look. Trail is like mine, where you have to earn your turns. You have to pedal up so that you can bomb down. I'm just gonna be honest, I was really blown away at how well-rounded this bike is. I really think it's a testament to the overall geometry. You can't just look at the slack head tube angle. You've got to look at the steepness of the seat tube angle. You've got to consider the reduced offset fork geometry. It's a much tighter feeling bike than just thinking about the head tube angle would indicate. When things turn downhill, this thing absolutely does not disappoint. I felt almost as confident on this bike as I would on my more aggressive full suspension trail bike. Certainly if you case a jump, you're still gonna feel it. This thing is a hardtail through and through. This is a steel frame, still is supposed to be more compliant, but I don't care who you are, still hurts if you're going through rough stuff sitting down or when you case jumps, you're still gonna feel it. But these Raceface AR30 rims combined with the Maxxis Assegai up front and the Maxxis DHR2 in the back, it really provides a lot of meat, a lot of extra cushion that makes this bike for a hardtail more forgiving. Similarly with the front fork, Marzocchi Bomber Z1, it's got the grip damper. Marzocchi's owned by Fox now. The same engineers that designed and developed the Fox 36 designed this Bomber Z1 fork. It's got the grip damper in it. I went in knowing that this was a heavier fork, that it was a burlier fork. It's a 150 travel, thinking that, you know, I may swap over when I get my medium frame in my Pike Ultimate and put it on this bike. After riding it, really impressed with the performance. It felt so stiff and yet supple at the same time. It was just really impressive. And not only that, but in person, just the CSU and the lowers of this fork, they look so burly and it really matches the aggressive nature of this bike really well. When I get mine in, I'm most likely going to be leaving this Marzocchi fork on there. The dropper post, it's got a Trans-X rad dropper post. I don't know a ton about it, but I do know that I've had several bikes with Trans-X posts. They're usually really fuss-free. It's got the Shimano dropper lever, which I've never used, never seen. It's got a really nice feel to it. It's got a nice action on it. Nice choice by Kona to put that Shimano lever, as is the choice to go with an XT shifter and an SLX derailleur. I haven't ridden anything Shimano pretty much since SRAM Eagle came out. It was really nice to feel this XT shifter. It has such a light, wispy, but crisp lever feel to it. You can downshift ×3, but you can actually upshift ×2. So if you push through hard enough, you can actually upshift 2 gears, which was really cool. The brakes are Shimano Deore 4-piston. The levers, they feel a little bit cheaper to me. It's like they have actually a little up and down play in them. The throw is just weird and kind of spongy feeling on these, and I just really wasn't a huge fan of those brakes. Others may like it. They still stop you. If you're a Shimano fan, you're probably gonna like them, fair enough. I think that even hardcore Shimano fans might wanna upgrade these brakes. I don't think I would ever have any complaints with these Raceface cranks. They look really awesome. They have almost like a low profile but industrial look to them, and they pair up with the look of this bike really well. I've had multiple bikes with SLX hubs. I've never had an issue. They have a very mild but crisp sound to them. It's very unique.
So this is literally my first few seconds aboard the new ESD. And I can tell you it's not what I expected at all. I think a lot of people are wanting to know about the ESD. They want to know, is all of that capability coming at the expense of just feeling like a complete pig? I can tell you that my initial reaction is definitely a good one. This 77.5 degree seat tube angle definitely feels like it has me in a pretty prime pedaling position. Now again, this is a size large at a humongous 490 reach. So one thing I'm really digging is this Shimano dropper lever paired with this Trans-X dropper post. Feels like a really solid combo. But man, this feels much punchier than what I expected it to be with this big old reach, really slack head tube angle. Like, it just doesn't feel bad at all. This is a climb that's usually tough to get, even on my trail bike. Just motors up it. All right, so my confidence is starting to build on this thing. I'm gonna try to hit this a little bit harder. Yeah. Woo! I've never hit that step up on a hardtail. It was just like this thing was made for it. Super fun. Now, if you're someone that's used to coming from a big trail bike, you're still gonna notice the increased snappiness just from coming over to a hardtail. But definitely you can feel this big Assegai tire on the front. The Assegai has a load of grip. Just got to spend a full weekend on it while reviewing the version 2 Sentinel. Love the grip, but when the trail really turns out flat or even up, you can really feel the increased rolling resistance. All right, one more session lap down my local jump line here. I have never had this much fun on a hardtail. I mean, this thing is just ridiculous. I mean, it just manuals so naturally. It's a natural jumper. It's just an all-out blast, and it's not taking me long to get used to it. I've not been on a hardtail for any amount of time in like forever, and it's just such a natural progression on this thing. It's a big old drop. Boom! Just railing around turns. Like, I've actually gotten along with this size large so well, much better than I thought I would, especially considering the crazy 490 reach. Like, this thing is such a blast. Wheeling, no problem on this thing. You do feel those shorter chainstays. It's a little bit harder to hold right to left. Man, this is such a playful bike.
Just on initial impressions, who do I think this bike is for? This bike is for anybody that's looking to have just a really wild time on a hardtail. Even if you're someone that your budget just comes in at enough to pick up one of these, or you can pick up what would really be kind of a lower end full suspension, this would be a really good option as a one bike option, because you can really run into some rough trails. You can get it done on jump lines, and yet it's a good, even just regular trail bike. For me, what this bike is going to be is a bike that I can jump off from my regular full suspension, and it's not gonna feel like a huge stranger. It's still got the capability. You don't feel like you're just getting on a BMX bike with no travel and a super steep head tube angle with no capability. You actually can get on this bike, charge hard. That's what this bike is gonna be for me. If that's what you're looking for, I definitely don't think you'll be disappointed. Make no mistake about it. If you're really into chasing uphill KOMs, you probably won't even be watching this video right now. This is not the epitome of efficiency. You can feel the increased rolling resistance, you can feel the extra weight, but much less so than what I went in assuming. Thanks for watching this initial impression of the Kona Hanzo ESD. I hope that you'll consider subscribing to the channel.
Did it look like I cleared it? Oh, okay.